Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of this live trading with interactive brokers and QuantConnect tutorial. In this tutorial, part 2, I'm going to show you how to spin up your own VPS, and so your own Linux server from scratch on Linode. I'm going to show you how to run the Lean CLI to live trade your trading strategy. And so what this is an open source project called Lean that was created by QuantConnect, which I covered in my first QuantConnect video. And this lets you live trade any of your trading algorithms that you've written on the QuantConnect platform. You can bring them to your own server and you can configure interactive brokers and command line parameters, and it'll download IB Gateway for you and automatically trade your interactive brokerage account. And what you'll end up with is all of your trading strategies in here, and you'll also be able to see an individual trading strategy and go in this live directory and see all of the logs and various instances when your trading strategy has run. So I can go for here, for instance, and look at what occurred on October 24th. Today is October 27th, and I can see all the various logs for this instance when I ran this trading strategy. So yeah, if this sounds like something you'd like to do, go ahead and follow along with me here, and I'm going to walk through the tutorial that I have on the website, hackingthemarkets.com. I'm going to walk through it step by step and type every single Unix command and make sure it's all working and talk about what I'm doing at the time. A short disclaimer, which you'll see in many trading videos: short-term trading is very risky, and writing code to trade is especially risky because there's so many things that can go wrong. So do all these things at your own risk. And as always, like and subscribe. And if you decide to use interactive brokers or Linode, I provide links below so that you can check them out. And when you do it through there, it helps support the channel. So let's go ahead and get started with setting up our server. So in the first part of this series, I gave a few pros and cons to each approach, and this video is for people that chose to do everything the hard way, which is to run your own server, which could allow you to have a little more control over your system, the cost, your tools, and so forth, right? But we need to spend a little bit of time configuring this server, updating it, and making sure it's backed up, all that kind of thing. So what I want to do is skip down to the part. So we already covered this part about deploying to QuantConnect's cloud. Make sure you understand the difference between your live trading and paper trading usernames. I talked about that in the first video, and also make sure you have this interactive brokers mobile authentication. I also talked about that in the first video. So just watch the first video if you don't know what all this stuff is. So in the article here, I'm going to go through this step by step. So I am using Linode for this. You're welcome to use DigitalOcean or Vultr or Hetzner or whatever it's called, or any of the other VPS providers, as long as you can run Linux. I'm using Ubuntu 22.04 LTS, and I have this $100 credit that you can use. So you can try this out and follow along with me, or you can just do it your own way. So if you're using Linode, this first section is specific to using Linode. That's what I use. And so I'm going to do login here, and I'm going to click on create. And that'll take me to my Linode dashboard, and I just click create Linode, and this will let me spin up a new server. I'm going to choose Ubuntu 22.04 LTS, and I'm going to choose a region that is close to me. I'm in California. I'm choosing Fremont, California. You can choose a server type, and so these are all the dedicated servers, but I don't believe in buying some fancy server before you really know that you need it. So what I found is that you can use this cheap $5 one for lots and lots of stuff. Now I have upgraded this before whenever I downloaded Interactive Brokers tools and wanted a graphical interface. So what you can actually also do is enable like the ability to run like IB Gateway and the Trader Workstation in a graphical mode, and you can configure this to have like a whole windowing system and so forth, and then you can actually interact with it by clicking your mouse and so forth. But what I'm going to do here is we're just doing pure command line interface, and you only need this 1 GB instance right here. And if you do something fancy later, you can click resize next to any of your nodes on here and resize it to a larger instance. The next thing I do is create a label for it. So I'm going to say this is my QuantConnect Interactive Brokers machine, or you can call it your QuantConnect machine, whatever you want to call it. Something meaningful. I actually run like 10 servers or so, and so I need this label to distinguish them all, right? The next thing you can do is specify a password to use. And so I'm going to specify a root password. So when you SSH into your machine, it's going to ask for a root password. If you don't want to use password authentication, you can actually add an SSH key. If you know how to do that, that's actually the recommended approach. I'm just going to use a password here. You can enable backups. That's $2 a month. I'm not going to do this on this one because I'm going to shut this server down right after this. But if you want to keep this running months on end and you're using it for real trading and you want to store lots of data on here, you have a database and so forth, you definitely need to back up stuff. If I have paid clients, I enable backups, obviously, and they'll still give you several different snapshots that you can use. So you'll get like a daily snapshot, and I think it's like a weekly snapshot. And then you can actually roll back to a previous instance in time. And you can also create a backup with a click, like on demand. And so this is very important. I've made mistakes with things I've worked on where I screwed up the database. I ran a live SQL query on the database and screwed it up, and I needed to restore it. So it's important to back things up. So I'm going to create a Linode now, and it's going to start spinning this up. So now this is spinning up right now. You see it says provisioning. It gives me an IP address, and what I can do is SSH into that machine. And so I'm going to go over to my terminal. And so I'm on OS X, on Mac OS X. So I have SSH built in. Also, newest versions of Windows, I forgot what version they added SSH. That should already be built in as well. But if you don't have SSH, then you can download a client. So there's the PuTTY client, for instance. And so I've included that link here. So if you have an old version of Windows or don't have SSH built in, you can use this PuTTY client right here. There's also a web-based client called the Lish console here. And so you can actually connect to it with a web interface like this. And there, you can also use this Glish here. I mentioned earlier making a graphical desktop. You can actually run a couple of commands and make this graphical and have like a whole windowed environment if you prefer that. So I'm going to close that, and it looks like my server is up and running. So you see the status there. And I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to SSH into my machine. Oh, check out my Stable Diffusion. Has anyone played with this yet? This is kind of fun. I'm actually spending some time with machine learning stuff. I've been kind of excited. Everyone's showing these cool demos there. So I think that'll probably be the topic of like the next season of Part-Time Larry. I can apply some machine learning concepts. Where was I? SSH in. So I'm SSHing into that box. It'll ask me if I want to connect, and I'll type my root password just like that. And I am in. Look at me. Brand new root on my machine, just like that. I'm in the root directory. And so in my tutorial, you can follow along. The very first thing you want to do is make sure it's up to date. So you want to do apt-get update and apt-get upgrade. And this will make sure all the latest packages are downloaded for Ubuntu. It'll download them all, install them all, and it should work seamlessly. And that's going to be great. So these will take a little while to download. And I'm just going to say yes, and download and install all of those. So while it's doing that, let me discuss the next steps. The best practice is not to log in as the root user on your Linux machine. What you want to do is add a new user. And so we can use the add user command and then the name of the user we want to add. And that can be what we log in as in the future. So let's go back to our terminal and see if this is done. Go ahead and say OK to anything, and this should kick you back to the prompt. Great. So I'm still the root user here. So I'm going to do add user, and I'm going to call this trader, right? And then I need to give this a password, and I will do that. And just say enter to everything, and it will create my new user. And so if I were to change into my home directory, you'll see now there's a home directory for the user trader. And so what I can do is log out. And so I'll exit my connection, and now I'm going to SSH in as trader at that address. So trader at, and then what was my IP address? 4533. So you'll have your own IP address there. And there you go. I'm logged in as trader. Now I forgot a step, so I'm going to log back out. And so I'm going to log back in as root at 45.33.109.128. And I forgot I need to give that user some super user privileges. So I'm going to go back to my guide here, and I need to add this trader user to the super users group so that can run privileged commands, because we're going to be installing a whole bunch of stuff. So user mod sudo ag sudo trader like that, right? And so now if I exit and then I log in again. So now if I log in with this user, then I have super user privileges and I can install and do all kinds of cool stuff. So the first thing I need to install is Docker. And if you watch my FreckTrade deployment video, some of this should be very similar. So you can just copy these commands, and I need to make them a little easier to copy. So this is installing some certificates and PGP and a bunch of stuff here. So this is just straight from the Docker page. And so I'm going to install this. And I'm just going to say yes to everything. And that. And I run a sudo apt update, and then policy, and then I'm going to install Docker Community Edition just like that. And then after this is installed, I should have the Docker command. So I'll verify that I have this. And the reason I need to install this is that when you start the Lean live trading, it's going to download this Docker image, and everything it needs, all the dependencies are already inside of there. So they don't have to worry about distributing this to all these different operating systems. It just uses that Docker container. So now if I type Docker, you'll see some different commands right there. And so that's how you know that you have Docker installed successfully. The next thing I'm doing is creating a new directory. So you see right now, if I type pwd here, I'm in this home trader directory, but I want to install this. I don't want to pull all my trading strategies to my default directory. So I'm going to make one called QuantConnect IB, for instance. And so I'll go into that directory now. And then what I can do, I need to install the Python tools now. I told you got to do every single thing, but actually it doesn't take that long. So usually when you install a Python package, you need to install it with pip, but that's not installed on a server by default. So you got to do sudo apt install python 3-pip, just like that. And you have to spell it right. And I'll say yes. Okay, so we have pip, and that should be installed. The next thing you need to do is set up a virtual environment. So I'm going to install that as well. If you've watched any of my older Python videos, I used to walk you through this every single video, but I don't want to start from scratch every single video, but you should know what a Python environment, virtual environment is at this point. So you can install these packages and they're not in like the global namespace, right? You can create different environments with different versions of Python, different packages and so forth. And so this environment is going to be specific to trading with QuantConnect and interactive brokers. Okay, so you can see I've installed that successfully. Now I run this Python 3 command to create that virtual environment. So I'm going to run this. And so that will initialize a new virtual environment. And if you look in here in my QuantConnect IB directory, you'll see this virtual environment right here. And now I need to activate that virtual environment. And so I'll run this command. So you can do source, and it'll run vin activate. And now you see this virtual environment is activated, right? And then so you see the venv is right here. That's how you know that the environment is activated, right? Then next, now that we have pip, we can install Python packages, and we're in this virtual environment. So I just do pip install lean, and this will install the lean algorithmic trading engine to this virtual environment, and we'll be ready to use it. All right, look at all this. Lean was installed successfully, so I can type the command lean, and it'll show me all these different subcommands I can use. So I can do a back test, I can do a build, I can create new projects, and I can do log in, log out, live trade, and so forth. So let's see what we need to do next. So the first thing I need to do is initialize this directory. So I have an empty directory here with no strategies or anything. So what I want to do is initialize this, and so that it generates a configuration file and a data directory. And so I'm just going to say yes. It's going to create some stuff in the directory. So you see, this is where it's downloading that Docker image right there. So it's downloading that to this local machine. It prompts me and asks me the default language I want to use, and I'm going to say Python. So next it tells me some commands I can run. So lean create project if I want to create a new project, or I can do lean cloud pull if I want to download my QuantConnect projects to my local machine. And that's what I want to do. I want to do lean cloud pull. Now, when I type lean cloud pull, it's like, who the hell are you, right? I didn't tell it who I was. And so it says it doesn't know who I am, doesn't know my user ID. And so what I need to do is type that lean login command. And you need to get your user ID and account token from QuantConnect. and you enter that in here. And so I included a screenshot of where you get that. So you just go to your QuantConnect account, and if you go to your account settings, at the bottom you'll see this security part. Under API here it says request email with token and your user ID for API request. If you click that, you'll get an email with this token that you can use, and you need to enter that right here. So I'm going to do that for my account right now. So if you do that, you should get a message that you logged in successfully. So I've already done that now. So now when I run Lean Cloud Pull, it should know who I am, and it'll pull down all my accounts. So look at that. It's pulling down, I have 30 something projects here, and it's pulling down all these different algorithms to this machine, and then I can use Lean CLI to live trade any single one of these on my own server. You can also see here where I've cloned some algorithms that were submitted by other members of the QuantConnect community. So someone just submitted a TTM Squeeze Pro. So I talked about TTM Squeeze on the channel before. So I cloned theirs from the community, and then so it can copy that to my account and I can change it, and then I can pull that down. They also talk about this in-out strategy as well, which there's tons of discussion on that strategy if you want to look at that. But right now I'm just focused on deploying a simple strategy and connecting to interactive brokers. So I cleared the screen, and now let's do Lean Live. I'm gonna click tab and then see all the different strategies I have available. So earlier I had that fat red orange horse that I talked about earlier. And so I'm gonna tab complete that, Lean Live fat orange horse. And let's see if it'll just trade that algorithm. So it says this command requires access to Docker. You may be asked for your password. Okay. So I'm gonna do interactive brokers. So it says choose your brokerage. And then next it says configure credentials for interactive brokers. And so you need to provide your username and password and log into your interactive brokers account. And I talked about that in the first video. You should have a username. You know, if you use interactive brokers, you should already have a username. So you can type that in. You should already have a password. And the account ID, if it starts with a U, that's your live trading account. And if it starts with DU, that's what your paper trading account is. At least that's how it is for me. I talked about that in the first video. So I'm going to log in right now. All right, so now that I've logged into my brokerage, it asks me to select a data feed. And for this, I am also going to choose interactive brokers. And a reminder, if you watched the first video, I do pay for market data subscriptions from interactive brokers. There's a couple options. You need that equity and streaming bundle. And then the $10 a month one is refunded if you have a certain amount of commissions each month. I think it's like $30. And so I'm going to choose interactive brokers right here and see, will this download and trade my interactive brokers account? You see it downloads this toolbox, and then it says, please configure the following missing property in lean.json, right? And if you open lean.json, I'm not going to open it because it shows some personal information in there, but if you go there, it has a little configuration setting for IB enabled delayed streaming data, and it's empty, right? And this says I should set that to true. But what I noticed here is that if I set it to true and I run this again, it'll generate a new lean JSON file and overwrite it, and it'll just be empty. And then I was stuck. I was like, what's going on here? If you look in the documentation, and maybe QuantConnect will fix this, if you look in the documentation, it says it'll prompt you and you just say yes or no, and then it generates it. But for some reason, this just tries and then fails. And so I looked through the Lean CLI. One of the benefits of open source, you can look through the source code, and I found that there's actually some command line parameters that you can pass to pass this in. And so that's the approach I took. And also, if I was very motivated, I could submit a pull request and improve this behavior, since I found it a little bit confusing. And so what we can do is, when I see how I did Lean Live and the name, I can do -- IB enable delayed streaming data and so forth, right? And then the other thing you can do is you can pass it your login credentials as well. The other thing that I've noted here is it says select the organization with the Interactive Brokers module subscription. And so I think that's the researcher seat that I showed in the first video, which is $10 a month. And this just automatically got selected for me, and it showed my organization, Part-Time Larry. So my current understanding is that you need that $10 a month researcher seat to do the live trading on your own server. So even if you're not using QuantConnect's infrastructure. So if you scroll down further here, I've documented what I've done for my live trading command. And so let me copy and paste this here, and let's talk about that real quick. So I'm going to paste this. So if I type that in, you can see the complete command. So Lean Live, the name of the project, the name of my brokerage, my data feed, I pass this IB enabled delayed streaming data. I'll set it to true, even though I have live streaming data. I pass my username, my account ID, so that DU or U1, and then IB password. And since I don't want to type this sensitive information right here on the command line, what I did is I just created some environment variables, especially since the password has a lot of special characters in it. It's hard to really type in a big long string like this anyway. So what I did was edit my profile. So you can do VI or nano and your profile like that. So I'll do that. So I'm going to do VI. And if you're comfortable with VI, do that. Otherwise, use nano if you don't know the shortcuts. And so what I did here is make an IB username environment variable, and then an IB password environment variable, and an IB account environment variable, right? And then I can set those there. You can also write your own scripts and shell scripts and set those in a text file or any other location you want if you don't feel comfortable putting that information on here. And so down here, you see I exported those. So I do export, right, so that they're available to the command line. So I'm going to do export IB username, export IB password, and then export IB account. And then you just need to type your username, your password, and then your IB account, right? The account ID. And then when I save that, what you'll notice, I'm going to do source, and I'm going to reload my profile so that it has those environment variables. And now I'm going to do echo.ib account. And you see how it echoes account ID, and then I can echo a variable for my username as well. So those are in variables now. And it looks like that disabled my virtual environment. And so I'm going to go ahead and re-enable that. So I'm going to do virtual environment bin activate. And what we'll do is create a little alias and a little shell script to run these commands automatically, because you shouldn't have to type these things over and over again. So I have that full command right here. So I'll paste this in my editor real quick. And so this is lean live. So I'm going to do lean live and that fat red orange horse. And then I'm going to paste in these parameters here, right here on the end. And let's see what happens now. So it says select the organization with interactive brokerage module, part-time Larry. Looks like it pulls down another Docker image here, and let's see if it starts up. All right, it says downloaded newer image for QuantConnect LEAN, and it's firing it up, and it looks like tons of stuff is starting to happen. So let's watch the log and see what goes down. It's installing a bunch of different .NET stuff here, and I guess running everything that's involved with running the Lean engine. So it says algorithm Python wrapper has started, and you see interactive brokers brokerage right there. And so it looks like it's trying to connect. It looks like data has been received. It starts IB gateway, which is part of interactive brokers. So it's QuantConnect can actually talk to your interactive brokers account. So that's all going. It's receiving data. You see it's connecting to the brokerage, and so it looks like it is successfully connected. It's trying to subscribe to data. Looks like it's successfully connected. It shows the cash value. And so this is a paper trading account. And so it successfully synchronized. So we know it connected successfully, got $973,000 right there. And then right here, you see this handle portfolio updates. Earlier in my previous video, we ordered some XLE and then sold it. So you can see this contract stock XLE in US dollars right there. And so you can see it's successfully connecting to our account and interacting with it. And we have succeeded in connecting Lean CLI to interactive brokers, and our trading strategy is automatically operating on our interactive brokers market data feeds. Now what I'm going to do is Control-C and go ahead and stop this thing and see if it stops gracefully. It looks like it did. And it also looks like, from what I've explored, there's a lean live stop command as well if you want to stop a particular project. So if I type lean live, it'll show me all the options. So it'll stop an already running a live trading project. I can also liquidate it like I did in the first video. And it looks like there's a deploy and there's a submit order. And so I can still, while my trading strategy is executing, I have some mechanisms for interacting with it, liquidating it, stopping it, and so forth if something goes awry. In my article, I also mentioned the command, so lean live stop for the name of the project to stop it. I also mentioned some Docker commands. And so if I do a sudo docker ps, you should see if there's a Docker image or is running or not. So I already stopped it, but if it's running, you should see some Docker processes. So that's the Lean CLI right there. And I can actually stop the container if I like really need to forcefully stop the Docker container. I can use a Docker command for that. Now, if I want to update my strategy, I could go back into the code on the QuantConnect platform and update it, or I can update it locally on my machine. One nice thing about managing it on QuantConnect is I can edit it there, and then I can do Lean Cloud pull and pull it back down. And so they're storing a copy of my code up there. But if you don't want to store it on QuantConnect, I guess you would have to edit it locally on your own machine and use Lean backtest there. Once you're done making any edits, you could do Lean Cloud pull. So I modified one and then I pulled it down. These didn't change, but if your algorithm changed, it'll pull a new version. And it's just like using Git for version control. You can push new code up and then pull it down to another machine. And then you can just run Lean live again. The final thing I've included here is a couple of aliases, so shortcuts that you can run. And so alias here, and so this alias is called activate, and what I'll do is change to your QuantConnect directory if you called it QuantConnect IB, and I'll activate the virtual environment. And so now that I have that alias, I can just type activate, and it'll activate my virtual environment. And then I have an alias called trade that'll just run and trade a particular project. And so if I set an alias called trade and then put this long command in single quotes, then I'll have a command and I can just type trade and I'll type that whole thing. And then you'll notice at the end of IB password here, I redirect the output. And so when you run this command and you don't redirect the output and you don't run it in the background, it's going to just block everything and you're just going to see log files right on the screen. But what you want to do sometimes is run this process in the background. And so if I run my trade alias now, right? So if I run this, it just kicks off that process in the background. And then now what I can do is go to my, since I deployed hipster sky blue chinchilla there, I'm going to change into that directory. So hipster sky blue chinchilla. And if I look inside of here and I go to my live directory, cd live, and list everything in there, right now it's October 27th at 6:07 p.m. And it looks like on my server it's 1:07 a.m. tomorrow. So this is like UTC time, I believe. And so I'm going to go in here and you can see it is indeed logging that it's running this hipster sky blue chinchilla algo. And if I tail my logs, I can type tail-f log and you should see it in motion right now. So you see it's actually running. So I'm live logging everything that's happening in this trading session, and I'm going to Control C and then show you what else is in here. If I list again, you should see it start spitting out new logs. And so I can see this JSON file here has some data about this run. So look at that. I have the holdings here in JSON format. And so what I can do, since it spits out this structured data format here, if I wanted to write my own Python script or dashboard that loads this information, I could do that and maybe display my own UI with that information. So it gives you this nice portable data format. Also, there's a code directory, right? And what's nice there is I can see the main.py, so I can see the actual strategy that was run for this instance. So this allocated to XLK, XLE, and XLU just now. So I see what that code looked like. Now, if I make a change to my algorithm and start again, what's nice is I have a time-stamped log, and so there'll be another instance with a different timestamp, and I can see which code generated which results. So as I'm running more and more live trading commands, modifying my strategy, I still have a history of every log file, how the code looked at the time, the performance metrics at the time, and so forth. So that's really nice to have all of that built in and all of that work done for you. So yeah, I showed you how to use the aliases here, how to check the log files, how to tail the log files, and yeah, that is about it. And so when you're ready to convert this to live trading, what you can do is go back and in your profile, you can change the paper trading username over to your live trading username. I showed you how to do that in the first video, and we'll successfully connect to your live trading account. and you can go from there. So yeah, that's about it for this couple of videos. We've successfully taken an algorithm written on QuantConnect and deployed it in two ways. We've used QuantConnect's cloud, we've used Linode and created our own Linux server and talked about the pluses and minuses to each approach. And in this video, we learned a lot about using the command line, installing the Lean CLI, and having it interact with our interactive brokers account. And so I recommend you try this out. It's really neat how all of this comes together nicely, and I really respect what QuantConnect has done here, and especially the fact that they've open sourced this Lean CLI for the community to be able to contribute and give feedback. So yeah, highly recommend it. So yeah, over the next few months, I think I'm going to spend a little more time on machine learning. That's a topic I've been meaning to cover forever, and I'm not an expert on it by any means, but what I'd like to do is take the latest libraries for machine learning. I've noticed there's this AnyTrading OpenAI gym environment. There's FinRL, this reinforcement learning library, and there's a lot of cool packages to check out. And so what I want to do is learn a bit about them and share what I learn as I go with you. And yeah, even if you don't like applying machine learning to finance and don't think it's a good way to go about trading, it's a good chance to learn machine learning, and it's applicable in so many other domains. So it's going to be a very valuable skill for the next decade. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next one. Thanks.